Okay, today we are going to learn how to make a histogram in Excel. So when you open up Excel, you'll have a blank workbook, and the very first thing that you're going to want to do is input your data. So I just inputted the data on the left column, on the A column right here, and in my case I have bowling scores. The end result is going to be this histogram here. But before you make a histogram, remember you have to have a frequency distribution. So hopefully you made by hand a frequency table or frequency distribution. And that's what I have in these cells at the top. Okay? So first step, input your data, and then make sure you just input the frequency distribution. The class and the frequency column is what we're going to have to use to make the histogram. And the end product, what you'll get, is this histogram right here. So I'm going to delete this right now so that I can remake it and show you what it looks like. So I'm just going to delete this. And keep in mind that if you have a different version of Excel, this might look a little bit different on the computer you use, but the buttons are generally in the same place. And if you have questions, you can always ask me if you have trouble finding things. Okay. But the first thing is we just want to make sure we're on a blank cell when we start our frequency histogram. And we're going to insert, and I'm just going to insert a general 2D column graph. And this button might be in a slightly different spot depending on what version of Excel that you're using, but that's just a note. And okay, so when you input this, when you do that, you should just have a blank square because you haven't told Excel what data to actually put there. So we're going to right click on this blank rectangle that popped up, and we're going to select the data. And we're going to click on Add under the Legend Entries. And series name we're not really worried about, and you can always change that. So we're just going to go to Series Values. And this is what you're going to have on your y-axis, which, as for a normal frequency histogram, is the frequency. So we're just going to select the numbers. And make sure you're only selecting the numbers and not the word frequency. And we're going to press OK. And then, now that we have the frequency, we're going to also need to say, okay, what goes on the horizontal axis? So we're going to press Edit here, and we're going to select under Class. And notice how all the numbers change. Again, we're only selecting the numbers. We're not selecting the title of the column. We're going to press OK and OK. So now we have the bars in the normal place that they should be. And remember to always have an appropriate title for your graph. So in my case, my data is of bowling scores. And really, there's only two more things that we need to change. We need labels for our axes, and we need to make sure the bars are touching, because in a histogram the bars touch. So this button is in a slightly different place depending on what version of Excel you use, but I want to make sure that I have labels for both my axes. So I'm going to press this, and notice how the axes titles pop up on the left side and the bottom here. And I'm going to label this frequency. And I'm going to label the bottom. The bottom is just going to be bowling scores again, because that represents the bowling scores. At this time too, you may have a legend here. In this case, the blue means Series 1. This is very useful if you have more than one type of data in our graph, but in this case, my data is just of bowling scores, and your data will be of just whatever data you have. If you're comparing two sets of data, this is a very useful thing to have, but in our case, we don't need it. So I'm just going to select it and press the delete button on the computer there. Okay. Now we're almost done. We're just going to select the bars. And we're going to Format Data Series, and that's a right click, by the way, to get that menu up. Since the bars are touching, we are going to take the gap width down to 0%. And now the bars are touching. But notice that if I deselect here, it's kind of, you can't really tell where the bar starts and ends. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the left here under the fill and at the where it says border. Okay. And again, this on my version of Excel, the menu's on the right side, but you might just have a window that pops up. But it's pretty much the same thing you need to do. It's just in a slightly different place. And we are going to make a solid line, and we're going to change that. You might have to change the color. In this case, it's black. It's already black for me. And that's a beautiful histogram. Feel free to play around with the different colors if you don't like the color that they give you. Creativity is always a good thing. But this is how you make a histogram in Excel.